So work with them on strategies and solutions. Don't just expect it to happen. If you're working with them and if you address it with them, a lot of times they're going to probably know that there was already a problem themselves. If it's somebody that's potentially willing to change and get better and really wants to stay wherever it is, stay with you working, they'll probably work with you on some strategies and solutions. So you come up with something together. So it's a collaboration.
So, for those who are currently watching, hi, welcome in. Thank you so much for your patience. My name is Angelina. I am a senior advisor here at Proactive Marketing. We're hosting today's masterclass with the one and only Dr. Layton. How are we doing this morning?
Fantastic. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you. So, today is going to be, as you guys probably heard, it's going to be a little tough of a subject: how to deal with a bad hire on your staff, how to let go of that bad egg. Sometimes it doesn't always mean letting go. So we're just going to break down how to identify one, the steps to take when you're dealing with a bad egg, and then, the post steps that can be taken during that process. So without further ado, whenever you're ready, go ahead, Dr. Layton.
So it's not going the way you thought. A lot of us, if you've been in business long enough, there's a good chance you have that bad hire. Only 50% of new hires are successful. So if that tells you anything right there, one and two, not so good. So the average employer spending about 2 months and $4,000 to hire a new employee. So that onboarding process isn't necessarily cheap. So you want to try to get it right. Again, you've got a 50-50 shot whether you're going to get it right or not. So if it's not right, how do you figure it out, and what are the next steps? So you don't want to be stuck with an employee that's damaging your team or your business. But can you correct it, or do you need to admit that you've made a mistake and move on? So lackluster performance, lack of efficiency, those are things that can show up right away. Know when to recognize you've made the mistake. More than likely, it's not going to correct itself. You can't just sit back and be passive and expect things to get better. And then just make sure you document everything. That'll save you in the end, because if you do have an employee that you end up having to terminate and move on from, if you have just cause in letting that person go, that can determine whether or not you're paying unemployment or not. So where do you begin? Step one: descriptive feedback with direct conversation. So it means you need to interact with this person. You can't avoid them. You need to address the situation. You need to speak with them. So describe the new hire what isn't what you expected. So is it their interactions with the patients? Is it that they can't pick up on the processes and the systems you use? Maybe they can't figure out how to use your computer software that you're using. Don't make it personal. And is it fixable? Can you find a resolution? So identify what the problem is. And ideally, it can be confirmed by someone else, whether it's a patient, another staff member, whatever it is. Avoid the hurtful statements. So, you don't want to tell them they're wrong. You don't want to say, I can't stand whatever it is that they're doing wrong. And obviously avoiding profanity. So if you drop a WTF or something like that, it's probably going to start things off wrong. So describe the reaction that was provoked or the consequence of the negative behavior. So you're not interacting well with patients, our business is suffering. That's a pretty direct way to approach it. So suggesting a solution or alternative, whatever the situation is, whatever it is that they're not doing right, instead of just saying, hey, you're doing this wrong, say, this is how we prefer to do things. This is how we typically handle this. This would be my recommendation for this to go better. So you can tell them we need to talk about where things are going right, where we're on track, and where we need improvements and things to change. So work with them on strategies and solutions. Don't just expect it to happen. If you're working with them and if you address it with them, a lot of times they're going to probably know that there was already a problem themselves. If it's somebody that's potentially willing to change and get better and really wants to stay wherever it is, stay with you working, they'll probably work with you on some strategies and solutions. So you come up with something together. So it's a collaboration. So then you should start to see immediate improvement. If not, next step. So they need a little more. You have to encourage them a little bit more, nudge them a little bit more. So establish a developmental plan. So you want to put something in writing, timeline, measurable goals. That again is going to hold them more accountable. It kind of gives you a time frame. So if we don't see this by such and such date, then we may have to terminate. So give them the training they need. So whether it's coming in a little bit early, staying late, doing something over lunch, over the weekend. If it's somebody that you think there's potential, you hired them, they made it through your hiring process, you brought them on, then maybe putting a little more time investing into them can make things better. But again, as you're going through that, you have to be able to evaluate objectively and know when it's time to cut bait. So encourage them on adding value, discourage them from diminishing others. So sometimes you've got somebody that comes in. So we had a doctor that was an associate. It's been a while back. It's been years, but he talked down to all the rest of the staff. He felt like he's the doctor and he should be able to talk to them like they're all peons, as opposed to being team members with value. Have a discussion with him, explained, hey, if you want respect from people, you can't just expect them to give it to you. You have to earn it. The way you're interacting with the staff, you're not going to get that level of respect that you're looking for. You need to kind of reevaluate and basically try to start over and start working on those relationships. Again, if they're unwilling to aren't unable to change and implement the changes, then you need to skip to step 4, which means letting them go. Again, keep documenting, show your efforts to help them be successful, and it can reduce or eliminate legal liability. So I had a situation where 2021, with all the stuff going on with COVID, I had somebody that she really struggled to be here on Mondays. She just partied too hard over the weekends. And so she would either be late or maybe tell me she didn't feel good. It was always, oh, I have a migraine. But she told another staff member that basically she was just partying too hard on the weekends and Mondays were a struggle. She had started texting me that like, hey, I can't make it in today. I'm not feeling good, migraine, see you tomorrow. Okay. So, it was kind of par for the course. I'd gotten used to it. The other staff member was there at the front desk. It just puts more on their plate, which starts to create a little bit of tension as well. They feel like they're doing too much. They feel like the other person's letting them down, creates animosity. So then, she's texting me day 2. She's saying, and it's like 9:30 in the morning. She's saying, I don't think I'm going to make it in today. I'm still really tired. I need another day to recover. I'm like, we don't start seeing patients till 2:30. Get some rest and we'll see you then. You need to be here this afternoon. So there was the back and forth. And then she started to say, well, maybe I'm not feeling good. I need to go see the doctor. I asked if it was COVID symptoms. This whole texting thing back and forth, which isn't typically how I'd want to do business, but it's kind of how it was progressing and it needed to be addressed and kind of nipped in the bud. She then was basically trying to get the whole rest of the week off by saying she couldn't get a COVID test until Friday, so she wasn't going to come in until then. And at that point, I just said enough's enough and had to let her go. So again, keeping track of all that, keeping the text messages, keeping anything written. You should document everything. Always have you sign it, and they need to sign it later. You've gone through step 2. You've done everything, and you're not sure if everything's going to work out. So separate the bad egg from the good ones. So I've worked in an office where they had somebody who came in. She did a lot of the marketing. She did a lot of the billing, things like that for the office. But she didn't fit in with the rest of the team. So their solution was to basically remove her from the office. She could do what she needed to do without being in the office. She could really excel. And it took, again, all the tension away from her being around the rest of the team. So she had value. She just couldn't play nice with everybody else. She was really good at what she did, but put her around everybody else and everybody else's performance came down, and you saw the just a different side of her. So that kind of like angry side. So again, limiting that interaction with the rest of the team. She'd only have to come in on Fridays for the office meetings. And so those were short, sweet, to the point. And then she was, back out and doing her thing again. So she was put in a position to flourish, and it kind of set her aside from everybody else. She could do what she needed to do. The rest of the team could do what they need to, and it was minimal interaction. So when all else fails, what happens? So give them the chance to prosper, but somewhere else. They don't need to be in your practice anymore. So keep in mind the best interests of anyone. It's better for them and the business. So you're relaying that, I think it's better for both of us. Sometimes it's best to sever that challenging situation. So that negativity can spill over onto your team and the rest of the business. Your patients can feel it, your staff feels it. As your staff feels it, then the productivity for the rest of the staff starts to go down. Their work quality goes down. You get employees that are disengaged because of the other employee, and then potentially you're losing good employees because you keep the bad eggs. So again, knowing when to cut bait can be vital. Their departure may actually improve energy and morale and motivate your team. They feel bad that you've been going through it. You didn't necessarily bring that person on to be bad. That's just how it worked out. And so being able to address it and correct it, your team appreciates that. And so they kind of rally to your side. So, always taking the high road when you let somebody go. Use grace and tact. You don't have to be aggressive or angry about it when it happens. Make the transition as smooth as possible. Act in good faith. Take responsibility. If it's somebody that you kind of care about, you want to help them out. You want it to leave on good terms. You can always offer severance or some type of pay package, whether it's a couple of weeks worth of pay if they haven't been there very long. Outplacement. It doesn't have to be that expensive. So that's a service that will actually help them put together a resume, help them basically, it's almost like a headhunting service that will help them find jobs. So it puts job opportunities on the plate. You can get where a service goes for 90 days for like $1,800 or less. So you remove that person, but you're also helping them improve their skills and helping them find another job. So learn from your mistakes. So you had a bad hire, big deal. It happens. You just need to move on. You can't get stuck in the past and just continue to hold on to that. You got to move on and let go. So I like harmony office. I like things very even keeled. I despise the drama. I can't stand drama in the office. I want everything to go smooth. That's how most people are. I've worked with a doc that really liked drama. That was kind of like his highlight of the day. He liked that soap opera atmosphere. I can't stand that. It's just not for me. So you kind of create the environment that you want to be in. So if you're looking for your hire, avoid making that same mistake over and over again. Evaluate your talent prospecting assessment process. So maybe you're not doing a good job of looking at the talent before you hire it. If you're finding that you're hiring multiple bad prospects, look at your hiring process and change it. Also knowing too, when you need to cut bait, it's not personal, it's just business. It is a business at the end of the day. With what we do, because we're high touch, we're very feely with what we do. It's very easy for things to become very personal, and we just need to be able to separate the personal aspect from the business aspect. Developing a team playbook or an employee handbook as a guideline kind of helps cover your bases. That can help a lot. Because you always has a reference to go back to. If you have their job description in there and what the expectations are, and they're not following that, they've signed that handbook. They know that's what they're supposed to be doing. If they're not living up to the requirements that they're being held to, then it's okay to be able to let somebody go. Just having those clear-cut, defined roles, responsibilities, job descriptions makes everything nice for everybody from the get-go. So address issues right away. Don't let them fester. Provide an opportunity to improve. Let it fester, or you think it's going to self-correct. It's probably not going to. You're going to be miserable. They're going to be miserable. Address it, correct it, and if you can't, move on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Layton, for the presentation. Again, it's a hard subject to deal with. However, I definitely think it is beneficial to talk about it. So I do have a couple of questions. I think you mentioned briefly there's paperwork that goes behind it. So do you have any suggestions on how doctors can prepare for that paperwork when letting a team member go?
So I use a payroll service, so Paychecks. They have an exit interview process that I utilize. So that's one thing, but also documenting every time there's an incident. So whether it's that they're having a negative interaction with patients, or they're showing up late. So they're supposed to start at 9 and they're not getting there until 10 o'clock. An hour late, that's pretty substantial. So, writing them up for that. You start off with your verbal warnings, go to your written warnings. You're signing it, they're signing it, but kind of creating those personnel files and documenting all those issues along the way.
Okay. Yeah, definitely documenting it is critical. I think it's good to document your employees' work while they're from the beginning until they end anyway. Obviously, employee reviews are good to have quarterly. Some people may have them monthly just to make sure everything is running smoothly. So I definitely think that's beneficial. Now, let me see. My next question is a little bit different. Do you have any tips for doctors, specifically for those who are like starting up their company? Because the reason why I ask specifically like a startup company, I'm pretty sure when you're starting up a business, it's more important when it comes to the people that you bring into the team. So do you have any tips on avoiding a bad hire?
Don't hire a patient.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hire a family member if you don't have to.
Wow.
Because it's hard to delegate to those people. They may not take you as seriously because you're a friend or a family member. So I encourage people to go out and find somebody that's qualified for the job, that they're looking for work, that want to grow with you. I've seen where, docs have hired, a patient, and it hasn't gone well. Well, then not only do you lose an employee, but you lose a patient, and then any of the family members that they had or friends, you potentially lose those patients as well. So it can run pretty deep.
Okay. Yeah, that was honestly going to feed into my next question. I was going to ask if it was a smart idea to hire a friend or a relative. I think the answer, definitely the answer is no. I've seen situations where it did work. But I think it'll only work if like this specific friend or relative is a little bit more exceptional. Outside of the friendship, they do portray a little bit more of the core values, which is a good point to bring up. I definitely think it's good to get aligned with like what you value in your company or your business, and then get those core values together. So when you're putting together that handbook that we mentioned in the presentation, you can put those core values in there to see if they can align with those. I know when we are going through a hiring process, we do introduce the core values pretty early because we want to make sure that they're a culture fit for the business too. But yeah, thank you so much for answering my questions. I did want to mention briefly before I let everybody go that if you are looking for any more resources in trying to figure out whether you're dealing with a bad hire when you're going through the hiring process, you are more than welcome to comment any questions into the group or down below this masterclass. There was also a hiring masterclass that we hosted back in January, so you can check that out. And there was also a Rockstar CA masterclass that we did back in March on how to look for a Rockstar CA and how how to train one to be a rockstar in your practice. So I definitely think those two masterclasses can align with what we talked about today. If you are looking for that, just click on, if you're looking on either your mobile or your desktop, look for that media area, scroll down until you find that masterclass, and then you'll be able to have that on hand. So yeah, I think we are pretty all good to go. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Dr. Layton, for the presentation. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.